How long is Brock Purdy's leash? The reason I ask is he loses his first game 2 days before Shannon Sharp goes on that whole thing about how he's not an elite quarterback, and this is all a reflection of Kyle Shanahan. And then Brock Purdy sort of lends credence to that. You know? And we know how Kyle Shanahan is, man. He soured on Jimmy quick. He soured on Trey quick. If he really felt that he was the main reason that Brock Purdy was having success, if Brock Purdy stops having success for just a little period of time, is it possible that Kyle Shanahan, being Kyle Shanahan, won't stick it out through thick and thin, but he'll pivot to the next quarterback? The quarterback he really, really likes is waiting in the wings, Sam Darnold.
Well, the genesis of Sam Darnold is interesting, right? He was coveted. We didn't just find him on the side of the road. So that is something to pay attention to. It doesn't mean everything, but it does mean something. As far as Brock's leash is concerned, you have to ask yourself, and this is karma, and I love it. I really do. Because we're no better than the next team. When we had Jimmy, the question with Jimmy was, are we going to stand behind Jimmy in order for us to try to get a Super Bowl? And that answer was yes. We stood behind Jimmy, right? Until Kyle was out on Jimmy before any of us knew. And he was actively trying to get another quarterback for years.
Before any of us knew. Can we stick there for a second? I feel like a lot of people thought Kyle loved Jimmy for a long time.
He was
and it was hard to realize that Kyle felt he was propping up Jimmy and that he was the reason for Jimmy's success. He didn't come out and say it, but I think that was clearly how he felt, and he was right. And my question is, does he feel that way about Brock Purdy too? He didn't discover Brock Purdy. Brian Greasy did, and Steve Slowick. So I'm curious, in a private moment, how much does Kyle attribute to Brock, and how much does he attribute to himself?
I'd say 70-30. I'd say 70-30. Yeah, 70 himself, 30 Brock. I mean, he didn't have anything to do with getting Jimmy. That was John in the front office, right? He didn't have anything to do with getting Brock. That was Steve Slowick and Brian Greasy. The only person that Kyle actually has like a direct hand in making sure that the quarterback is in the building right now is Sam Darnold. I feel like, Kyle was out on Jimmy before any of us knew for years. Kyle was out on Trey in reports from people inside the building, literally less than a year after he was in the building. Kyle was out on Trey so before any of us knew. So I pretty much say that when Kyle is out on Brock, none of us are going to know. It's going to be way sooner than we think. And we're going to start see it matriculate on the field. So to be direct without giving you like the scenic route answer, I give Brock 2 more bad games and then he's getting pulled.
Yeah, like Kyle doesn't want to look crazy. He doesn't want to go against the grain and make himself look irrational. But I think he's as skeptical of Brock as anyone. And that's hard for Niner fans to realize. Like I was talking about Jimmy for like since they got him. I'm like, I don't know if he's really an elite quarterback. And I feel like Kyle was right there with me. And it took people years to realize that Kyle is that skeptical. He's almost, he's cynical and quite, aware of the effect he has on his quarterbacks, put it that way.
Yeah.
So why does he feel different about Brock? Like real quick, yesterday when asked about Brock and how much he trusts him, Kyle immediately was like, yeah, I trusted Jimmy too. It's just he kind of just couldn't stay healthy. Like how different does he look at them?
Yeah. I mean, he'll gaslight. I feel like Kyle will immediately, especially I feel like Kyle would immediately gaslight the situation and put it on Brock where he's not healthy enough. He's too young. He's not developed enough. But it's like, yeah, but that's what we had when we had Trey. Like we still like Brock takes the same track as Trey. Trey's gone. So now Brock needs the reps. Now Brock needs to be on the field by hook or crook. You don't make him better by pulling him. And if you're pulling them, then you're really here to say that you just care about the Super Bowl and you never cared about the quarterback to begin with. That's just what it is. So, Kyle put out a very interesting article years ago, and somebody asked him about what are like some of the best things that you learned from your dad with coaching. And the number one thing Kyle said, the very first thing he said was, I learned how not to get fired.
I remember
Like
that. Yeah. That
I
is the number one job.
that's the number one job. Like,
Yeah.
don't get fired. Right. So I feel like if it ever came between Brock and Kyle's job security, or Brock and
That's that.
Kyle pushing forward, that's that. Brock's
That's
gone.
that.
And you know what? And there's fans who are really sensationalized by Brock that probably will never believe that. They won't believe how Kyle really feels about Brock. So,
And let's
it
step
is
back
what it
for a
is.
second. He didn't I wouldn't say he didn't want Brock, but he didn't discover Brock.
Mm-mm.
Brock is not his template for an ideal quarterback. He can work with Brock. They're having a ton of success, but he had a ton of success with Jimmy too. From Kyle's perspective, he can have a ton of success with a lot of quarterbacks. Did he bring in the next Brock this year? Did he find like this is my new platonic ideal? No. He could have drafted a guy late, day 3, like Brock, experienced, smaller, not as physically gifted, and said, this works for me. It's not what he
Mhm.
did. He went out and got another player who's about 6'3", 6'4", who was the number 3 pick in the draft, who's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit more physically gifted.
Mhm.
It's like he did a redo on the Trey Lance pick. All right, Trey Lance didn't work, but I'm going to get this guy with a bunch of physical tools and see because if I can have this success with Brock Purdy, if I can have this success with Jimmy Garoppolo, imagine what I could do with a quarterback who is really, really gifted. Now, that may
And
not
it's
be
on
Sam Darnold,
wax.
but that's
It's
what they're
on
trying to
wax.
do. Yeah,
I agree with you, and it's on wax. I feel like we're forgetting about all of this. It all plays. We offered a first round pick for Sam.
that's right.
The Jets just turned us
That's right.
down.
Mm-hmm.
That was that was on
That happened.
Kyle. That happened.
That happened.
We offered a first round pick for Sam Darnold. So if you think Kyle can't let go of players like Kirk Cousins, just imagine how he probably feels about Sam. I'm telling you, man, I want to be able to get a real quarterback, man. And we ain't gonna find out what Brock is by benching him if he struggles. We gotta play him. We gotta
Yep.
play him. So I don't want the fans to get gaslit into this quest for 6. Because if we bench Brock, how in the world can you bench the kid and he's not hurt? Right. Let's say now if he's hurt, you got to sit him down to protect him, right? You got to preserve his career. But if he's struggling, how the hell do you bench him and then put on Sam and then lie and act like you're not going to do everything to keep Sam? Because Sam is a rental. Sam is only here for a year. He's a free agent next year. So they're not if you think they hung on to Brock for 7 games, man, if they win with Sam Darnold is our new quarterback. I'm telling you. They'll
Yep.
do
And
it.
he'll get a lot of money. But I'm just saying, if teams copy the Browns man coverage blueprint and it's effective against Brock and he comes back down to earth, Kyle's not sentimental, man. He's
Hell
not
no.
tied to Brock. He's not sentimental. So look, maybe this is nothing. Maybe this is a blip. Maybe this is just the prelude to the Hall of Fame career by Brock Purdy. But if it's
Yeah.
not, and this is the prelude to him coming back down to earth because finally teams have figured out the one thing that he doesn't shred apart, I'm telling you, man, Kyle Shanahan is itching to
Yeah.
do
I mean,
something that you can't believe.
yeah. So I mean, I could see if it was one game, but we'll see. We'll see next week if it was one game. He should bounce back. It's the Vikings. So
Yeah, he should bounce back. They're going to blitz him. It should look a lot like the game against the Giants.